I rise to support the Maritime Anti-Piracy Bill. This bill was in fact needed much before because the United Nations Convention on Law of Sea, that was Convention of 1982, and thereafter India ratified in 1995. So almost 166 countries are member states. So I would like to, before I start, I would like to refer the speech of Honorable Prime Minister, remarks at the United Nations Security Council high-level open debate on enhancing maritime security, a case for international cooperation. The ocean quote, "The ocean is our joint heritage. Our sea routes are the lifeline of international trade. And the biggest thing is that these oceans are very important for the future of our planet. But today, our shared maritime heritage is facing many challenges. Sea routes are being misused for piracy and terrorism. There are maritime disputes between many countries, and climate change and natural disasters are also maritime domain-related issues. In this broad context, we must make a framework of mutual understanding and cooperation for the preservation and use of our common maritime heritage. No country can make such a framework alone. It can only be realized through a common effort. It is with this thought that we have brought this important issue before the Security Council. I am confident that today's high-level discussion will guide the world on the issue of maritime security." Unquote. So keeping in view these aspects, I extend my thanks to Honorable Minister that this is a very important legislation, because if we see the Indian Ocean region, almost 50% of the global sea trade and more than 1 lakh of the ships carried through this Indian Ocean region. And we are witnessing, and this from the long time, the robbery or hijacking for payment of ransom. And not only one particular part of the globe. In the sea, the Gulf of Guinea, Malacca, Red Somalia waters, all there are shipping routes. And after 2008, the Gulf of Aden and Seychelles and Mauritius are also subjected to many pirates. And this 2009 to 2019, almost 1,173 piracy and robbery were committed. Now, because we see that there is no separate legislation in our country, because the jurisdiction problem, and there are so many problems, this is the reason that because in the IPC and CRPC, the piracy has not been treated as a crime. And the questions also, because one of the cases arose in this jurisdiction of the Indian courts, the Alondra Rainbow case of 1999, where the trial court prosecution was successful, but the High Court struck down and overruled on the jurisdictional ground, on the ground that the piracy is not a crime under the Indian Penal Code, and Indian courts are not having any jurisdiction with respect to exercise the jurisdiction with respect to any offence committed on the high sea. So this is the reason. So now question is, why this bill? What is the reason why government is bringing this bill? Because to arrest, investigate, and prosecute and provide the punishment, inflict the punishment, there is no provision in Indian Penal Code, and there is no procedure in the Criminal Procedure Code. And this is the reason. And moreover, the word piracy has not been defined under the Indian Penal Code. Therefore, it has not been treated as punishment. The Indian courts are not having any jurisdiction with respect to the piracy committed on the high sea. And there is a jurisdiction problem. And apart from this, it is also a United Nations obligation, because the United Nations Convention on Law of Sea was adopted in 1982 and India ratified in 1995. Since there is no law on that in this area, and this field is unoccupied, and for repression of the piracy, this law is needed. So if we go by chronological order, so earlier the bill was introduced before this House in 2012, It was sent to the Standing Committee. Standing Committee reported, it gave its recommendation. And again, it was redrafted in 2018, redrafted after consulting this Law Ministry, Shipping, Ministry of Home, Ministry of Defense, Navy, Coast Guard. And legislation has also taken into consideration the law which is prevalent, the law made by the Australia, New Zealand, and Sri Lanka. And we have also taken the guidance from the international this maritime organization. So if we see the objective of the bill overall, so basically it is the foremost objective is repression of the piracy on the high sea and empowering the competent authority for arrest, investigate, prosecute, and inflict the penalty on the guilty. And it is also obligation of the United Convention on the Law of the Sea. And the piracy was not criminalized earlier. Now criminalizing the piracy is also one of the objectives of this bill. And apart from this international support anti-piracy operation by the Indian Navy, it will also help them. So apart this applicability of the bill. So if we, from the coastline, the territorial water, we have exclusive jurisdiction, we can deal with under the Indian Penal Code and CRPC. But beyond the territorial water, in exclusive economic zone, we can utilize and this for the purpose of research and other purposes. But we don't have any jurisdiction and we can't invoke the provision of the Indian Penal Code and CRPC for prosecution and punishment. So that's why this law is needed, and so far as the territorial jurisdiction, it goes up to 12 nautical miles, that is equivalent to 22 kilometers, and exclusive economic zone, that is 200 nautical miles, that is equivalent to 370 kilometers. So in 370 kilometers, we were not having jurisdiction. That has also been treated in the high sea. So we are having the sovereignty. So far the territorial water is concerned, we don't have any sovereignty and we don't have any jurisdiction with respect to the exclusive economic zone and high sea. And this, if we see the bill, the definition of the piracy is as defined under the United Nations Convention on Law of Sea, adopted in 1982. There are 4 mandatory conditions. If we bifurcate the whole definition in 4 parts, then these are the 4 mandatory conditions for this, whether a particular act is this crime or not. First, this crime should be committed for private ends, number 1, by any person or by crew or any passenger of a private ship. Number 3, the place can only be the high sea. Number 4, against another ship or any person or property on board such ship. Now question arises, if the crime is committed by the foreign ship, by the government ship, that is this non-commercial, and this warship, then it is not included. So if it is a commercial ship, it may be a government ship. I think, to my mind, then because this is not clear on this issue, then on the basis of interpretation we can say, even if it is a government ship, it is involved in commercial operation and piracy is committed, then it is also comes under the jurisdiction. So the punishment of piracy, Mr. Manish Tiwari was referring about the committing of the piracy under this clause 3. So far the clause 3 is concerned, clause 3, whoever commit any act of piracy shall be punished with imprisonment, because it has been, official amendment is there, imprisonment for life or with fine or with both. And who causes the death or attempt, then with death or with life imprisonment. So I think this has been, official amendment is on the reason that the mandatory death penalty can't be inflicted. In one of the cases, the Supreme Court has taken the view that the mandatory death penalty is unconstitutional, and reason being, it is violative of Article 14 and 21 of the Constitution of India, that no person shall be deprived of life and liberty except in accordance with law. But law must be reasonable. So no discretionary power has been given to the court to inflict that penalty, whether that penalty in the given facts and circumstances is needed or not. Therefore, the discretionary power can't be taken away from the court. So in state jacket formula, if such type of crime is committed, then the court must be given discretion. And this is the reason that I think it is a welcome move by this government that they have this official amendment is there, that discretion has been given to the courts. So, in fact, earlier the court has, region East court has also struck down the article, this section 303 of the IPC, where a convict who is in the prison, serving the prison, if he commit a murder, then that person committed death, then that person is, the penalty is only the death sentence. So that provision has been struck down by the court that the discretion should be, and some questioning should be there. In the given facts and circumstances, it is for the court to decide whether the death penalty is needed or not. So that is the reason. And apart from this, under the Arms Act, usage of prohibited arms resulting in death, then that provision is also struck down. So, and on the basis of this, some of the cases are also pending before the Supreme Court with respect to the mandatory death penalty on the Act of the SC/ST Act of 1989 and Anti-Hijacking Act of 2016. These cases are pending on this, and the government has this official amendment is there. So the word death penalty has been removed and word or is used, and that discretion has been endowed on the court. Now, if we go by the country-wise, some of the country like Singapore, Thailand, and Malaysia, they have made the provision for mandatory death penalty if death is caused during the piracy. And in America, the punishment is for 20 years. And some of the more countries that no death penalty for the piracy is Kenya, Australia, Italy, and Sri Lanka. My suggestion to this Honorable Minister about this, some of the provision, because I think so far as Clause 3 is concerned, whoever commit any act of piracy, I think thereafter official amendment may be brought on it. Act of piracy, this is reference to the act of piracy, but it is not with reference to aids or abet or conspires or procures. Because the action and conspiracy, both should be added, but in Clause 3, only the commission is added, not this conspirator. So this is missing, I think. And second part is second suggestion about it. And whereas in Clause 4, if we read Clause 3 and Clause 4, then in Clause 4, if we read Clause 4, sir, then whoever attempt to commit the offence of piracy or word, this rightly used, word or aids or abets or counsel, instead of counsel it is conspire, or procures. These words should also be there in Clause 3, immediately after any act of piracy. Commit any act of piracy or. Because this Clause 3 and Clause 4, they must have the similarity, because in Clause 4, the proper words are used, but in Clause 3, these words of the aids, abets, or conspiracy. The conspiracy part is missing in Clause 3, which should be there. And this, for attempt, this under Clause 4, punishment for attempt to commit any piracy or aids or abet, conspire, this is because it can extend to 10 years. I am coming on the punishment. It is extendable up to 10 years or fine or both. But I fear that if any attempt or the commission offense is there, then the use of the word or, it gives too much discretion to the court that if they can also impose only the fine. Instead of inflicting the penalty, I think too much discretion has been given to the court that even the fine can be imposed for this purpose. And again in Clause 5, punishment or for organizing, directing others to participate, 14 years or with fine or both. This I am reading Clause 5, sir. Whoever participate or organize or direct other person to participate in any act of piracy shall be punished with imprisonment for a term which may extend to, now it has been reduced to 10 years, and shall also be instead of and, now it has been substituted by the word or, shall also be liable to be fined. So the court can also impose the fine in all cases wherever the word or is used. So we can use the word immediately after the 10 years punishment and word and, fine, or both. And finally, this I would also like to refer arrest of person and seizure of ship, this clause 7, sir. Clause 7 says, this new clause has been added. The clause 7 says, the authorized personnel may either generally or on suspicion that a ship is engaged in piracy on the high sea, board such ship and arrest the person or seize the pirate ship and property on board. I am referring to the official amendment. And in official amendment, the word generally, either generally or on suspicion, because in the main act, the word suspicion we have not treated as a punishment. So if it is a suspicion is not a punishment under the word, when we define the word piracy, then we can't, basically we can't treat it as a punishment. So that's why it can also create a problem. And here they arrest the person or they seize the pirate ship. So we are giving the power to the authority. Either he can arrest the ship or seize the private ship. So if he only sees the private ship and he is not arresting the person, so this power is given, we are empowering the authority, either arrest the ship or seize the vessel, seize the private ship. So arresting the person is not mandatory. He can only seize the private ship and property on the board and finish his job, because he can say very well that I am acting in accordance with the provision of the law. And again, the word suspicion is not there. It has not been treated as punishment. So once we are not treating it as a punishment under the definition of the piracy, then it may create some problem. And about the authorized persons, there is no problem. And again, this about the presumption, because Mr. Manish Tiwari ji has referred about the presumption. In some of the law, presumption, on the basis of the presumption, person can be prosecuted. But no doubt it depends upon country to country. But once the offence is extraditable, then it can be on the basis of the reciprocity. We can bring the accused here and prosecute. But the presumption of committing the crime, unless contrary is proved, we have under the bill, we have given the sufficient safeguards. The safeguards is, but because these are the mandatory safeguards, that the recovery of arms and ammunition. Once we recover the arms and ammunition, then presumption can be drawn. In absence of arms and ammunition, no presumption can be drawn. But so therefore, the sufficient safeguards have been provided under the bill, that once the arms and ammunition have been recovered, or those are used or intended to be used, the evidence of force and threat is there, the evidence of intended threat is there. So in the bill, the sufficient safeguard have been taken with respect to the presumption. No doubt the presumption is that presumption of the guilt. So some of the enactment we have in this Prevention of Corruption Act like that, that is a valid enactment. So in this, when we are dealing with high sea, so in case we don't draw the presumption, then it is very difficult to prosecute that person, very difficult to collect the evidence. But in the bill, the mandatory conditions have been provided and sufficient safeguard have been given and very fine balance have been maintained, that unless there is no recovery. Simply on the basis of this provision, we can't say that only the presumption is there. But for the presumption, to draw the presumption, then the recovery of the arms and ammunition should be there. And those should be either used or intended to be used or force or there is a threat. then only the presumption can be drawn. So therefore, there are sufficient safeguards in the bill, and on the point of the extraditable crime, because it is no doubt and deemed to be any other state on the reciprocity. If there is a reciprocity with the other nations, then we can extradite in, without any problem. But keeping in view, because every state must have their own legislation. But once we enter into this agreement is there, bilateral treaty is there, then there will be no problem for extradite the crime. Basically, we have treated this crime as an extraditable crime. So on the basis of the reciprocity, there we can bring him back. Thank you very much, sir. And I support that the bill may be passed.
Steve, Mehtab.
Yes.
Sorry.
I